Hello and welcome to KennyRoy.com. I'm Kenny Roy. This is the Ask Videomail for the week of February 28th, 2011. Welcome to the site. Welcome to new members and old. Thank you for being here and thank you for supporting the site. The Ask Videomails, I think the Ask Videomails are a fantastic way to interact on the site. I think it's a great way to get a lot of value out of the site. I've answered questions from one person more than once, which means that that person actually got basically 2 custom video tutorials on problems they're having in animation. So wouldn't that be super awesome? So just please continue to send in your questions. If you'd like your question answered in an Ask Video Mail in the future, you got to send it in. Send it to webmaster@kennyroy.com and I will get to it as soon as possible. A lot of good things. Let me do a little bit of news. A lot of good things happening at the studio. I'm taking some very exciting meetings and things are looking like they're moving forward. I may not be in this space for very much longer. So in an Ask Video Mail in the future, you might actually see completely different surroundings. So don't be alarmed if that happens and that's where we are. So cross your fingers for me if you're a person that believes in superstition, or even if you're not. I'm really hoping for some big things in the future on the order of feature film projects. So that's what we're trying to do here at Arconics. All right. So also that may mean that there's some announcements for some jobs in the forums. I do like to post in the forums first when I'm looking for animators to do some freelance work. I do work with animators remotely, so. Keep an eye out for that. All right, so let's get to the question. This is a very interesting question, and let's get right to it. This week's question is: awesome question. Slow motion could be very, very weird. Very interesting question, though, and I really like it. I actually worked with the animator. I hired him on a project. His name was John Nguyen. And he animated the rhinoceros that's galloping in the movie 300. I think you can probably find that on a YouTube search or a Google search, or at least find the time code if you have the film. And it is a slow motion shot. It's basically this rhinoceros is like unleashed by the Persians and is running towards the Spartans, and I think one of them throws a spear or something, and then they all like don't move, and they're standing there, like they're not scared at all, and it gets hit, and then it kind of stumbles and falls and rolls and digs into the dirt. It's a beautiful shot. John nailed it. Kick butt animator. And I asked him how he did it, and this is the answer. What you want to do is you want to make sure that everything is looking good at speed, and then when you change to slow motion, you really want to kind of like plus it up. You want to change just what you can to make it a lot more appealing, a lot more, shall we say, a lot more exaggerated finely, so that there is a greater feeling of weight and a greater feeling of that momentum and that force. And this is not necessarily just for a heavy character, but like all characters, what the danger is when you switch to slow motion, that it'll get floaty and weird. Okay, so I have a quick little tip for previewing the slow motion. Okay, so let's check this out. This is the shot that actually comes with the cartoony lecture. Okay, and if you look in Maya, there's a playback by parameter in the time settings. Here's the shot just as it exists. It's just a cartoony shot where this guy is scrambling and fumbling with a thing and then exits. Okay, if you have the cartoony lecture, you can actually get this scene. So go ahead and open this up if you have the cartoony lecture, which is in the store. But if you go right here, playback by, what that means is you have to turn it to play every frame, I believe, because it grays it out if you don't. But if you hit play every frame and then play back by something less than 1, then it'll actually turn it into slow motion. So at, let's say 0.25, and we hit max playback speed is 24, okay? If we hit 0.25, this is basically 1/4 speed, okay? So instantly it's turned into slow motion. And what you immediately see is that cartoony animation really breaks down when you turn it into slow motion, right? Because I've got these windmilling legs, I've got the arms windmilling and stuff like that. So the cartoony timing does have a little bit of a problem. But the part I wanted to actually hone in on is this frame right here, where he actually anticipates up just a little bit. In slow motion, you can actually emphasize that even more. It's just a little bit of a flicker. It's like a frame in the full speed version of this, but in this version, it's kind of getting lost. So definitely change the playback speed so that you can preview what you're doing as you're animating it in real time. Okay. Then what you want to do is go back to normal playback speed and go to real time, 24 frames per second. And then I do it this way. There's many ways to do it. You can select all. You can do it by retiming your shot with any retiming tool. You can use a dope sheet. I just like to go like this and go select all by type, transforms. Okay. This is all my transform nodes, and then also show all my curves, and then just make sure if there's any other weird nodes on the curves that maybe did not get picked up, that it'll pick them up. So I just added that to selection. This is my entire scene, okay, as you can see. And then what I'm just going to do is I'm going to grab everything and I'm going to hit in my stats. Right here you can type in basically math, multiply equals 2. And that multiplies everything by 2. So I just slowed this down by half. Actually, you know, let's not do 2. Let's do 4. Multiply equals 4. Okay. So now when we go back to the camera, and this is playing at 24 frames per second. Now we have that slow motion version. Okay, obviously the shot is supposed to be much longer than this one is right now. But okay, so here we go. So that little section that I wanted to emphasize was that little anticipation up right there. So what I would do is I would just grab the keyframe. And this is, you know, his up and down motion, okay? And you see how it's basically being done with tangents right now. I would say we can put a keyframe on here and actually anticipate up even more, like that. See that? See that change? And if you remember from the cartoony lecture that anticipation was done to kind of create a thought process to him returning to the ground. It's basically he's so intent on his target that he can defy gravity with his mind, but you have to show thought with anticipation. So that's the fundamental that we honed in on to make that cartoony choice actually work, okay? But as you can see, now at quarter speed, slow motion, this action is working just as good. It looks just as good at this speed, and it was because we did make that little tweak. So, simple answer, great question, but just to recap, you definitely always want to animate at speed and watch it at speed and make sure it looks great, almost perfect at speed, and you're almost animating 2 shots, because then you'll want to retime your shot to fit the correct playback speed, 200 frames per second or whatever, and then go in and find those little things. If it's a cartoony shot, then definitely emphasize those little things that you were doing with the fundamentals and tweaking them here and there to emphasize the parts of the shot that you thought needed emphasis. And on a physical shot, what you want to do is you want to really play up things that sell the weight of that physical moment. One thing is that you'll notice that for instance, the Y curve and the Z curve of feet when you're walking or if you're running. Sometimes you will have like clamped or flat tangents. You really need to break those tangents and have them fast in to the into the ground. Okay, because if you have them flat tangents and that foot kind of slows into that ground pose, then it's just going to look really weird at slow motion. You really need to, even though a fast in is going to be very slow relatively, I know it sounds a little bit weird, but relative to the rest of the animation, that foot needs to accelerate into the ground, and there needs to be acceleration and then just like a dead stop. Okay, otherwise it looks, again, swimmy. It looks like it has no weight and whatever. So hone in on those things in your physical work when you're working with slow motion. And there's no reason that you can't stay pretty much in the real-time shot for a long time. I mean, you probably want to make broad changes to the real-time shot, and then slow it down for preview and dailies and stuff like that. I would say don't leave the blocking phase without having a really almost locked, if you can, like a solidly approved real-time shot that when you just retime it, it gets you a slow motion shot that's been bought off on, and then you can just polish the slow-mo portion. You really don't want to go back and forth too much because of the way Maya handles keys and because of the way that everything kind of makes it all garbled. If you try to make a shot that has keys on every frame, that's 200 frames per second basically, but 24 frames per second. When you squish that back together, a lot of mess can happen. So it all comes down to workflow. I'll say it again. I'll say it again and again. It always does come down to workflow, doesn't it? You need to make sure that you're working with keys that are going to be editable, and you're going to be able to make the animation work no matter what the note is, no matter what the feedback is, and all that. So important stuff and very interesting. I loved this question. Thank you for bringing this up. This is obviously a question that applies to a production process. I hired the guy that did that shot, and he talked to me about it, and it was just very interesting. And John, if you're watching, thank you for that info, and hope you're doing well. Okay. Thank you for the question. Ask me a question. Please send your questions to webmaster@kennyroy.com. And I look through all of them, and I answer the ones that I think are going to kick butt for everybody. Please discuss these video mails in the forums as well, and don't forget to use the forums to request future resources, things like lectures, or if you want any other kind of resource, like the workflow checklist or anything like that. I'm all ears, and I'm just excited to be part of this and for all your guys' support. I thank you. I thank you again. Okay, so keep on keeping on, guys. Good luck with your work, and as always, rock on.